Good afternoon, each and everyone. My name is Ishmael from South Africa. Another day, another episode. This is going to be episode 3 of my story. You will notice that on my previous video, I made a mistake by saying it was episode 3, whereas it's episode 2. So I'm here to correct that. And I thank you so much for following this channel, subscribing, and sharing. I'm going to be carrying on from where I left off on the previous episode, where I made mention that after a long-lasting moment without my father being around and the other gentleman taking over the fatherhood in my home, eventually my father returned. He actually came back without making any announcement at all. He just popped in. It was in 1996 when he came back. He just randomly appeared. It was midnight, around, if not mistaken, 12:01 a.m. And he eventually just came through. So basically, we were sleeping, we were young, me and my younger brother sleeping on the floor. My mother was sleeping on bed. Take note, the other gentleman never used to come often. He came when he needed to, but he didn't come so often. So when my father returned, he was basically not there at all. My father came, we were fast asleep, me and my brother. He knocked, and then he entered the house. I really didn't care much who was walking into the house. It was a single old round-shaped house because my granny lives in a 3-roomed house, or lived in a 3-roomed house, which was just opposite, the rendezvous house, the round-shaped house. People from South Africa knows it. That's where my mother was actually staying with me and my younger brother. My mother's mother was living in a 3-roomed house, a few steps away. It happened that because we were all in one room, when my father came back to knock and to enter and all that, we were sleeping. We didn't really care much. And it was all about, happiness. Trust me, I could tell, because I didn't wake up immediately to see who was in. I just heard this deep voice like, "Hi, how are you, my love?" and things like that. I was like, okay, who's this now? This might be my father. Because I heard about him being having this kind of a voice and stuff like that. I didn't even raise my head to try and see who's there, what's happening, I just slept. And I remember my mother cooked wors. I don't know if it's wors everywhere or it's a sausage or whatsoever, but in South Africa we call it wors. It's a processed meat, I remember peeping, through the blanket just to try and see what's happening. And I found my mother feeding my father that piece of wors with a fork. And I could tell that my mother was happy. But I was still not certain, who is this man in the house? Tried to raise my head. And then his first response when he saw my head was, "Futsek." You can't believe it. That's what he said. And then I immediately went back to my blanket. We were sleeping on the floor. I don't know if we had a sponge or not, but I think so. Things were, bad. We were poor, very poor. We couldn't afford things. My mother used to hustle, take hard labor just in order to feed us, but I really appreciate and I really respect her for that. Big up to you, Mom. When my father said that, I was like, is this the father I heard about? Because this just sounds like him. And it appeared to be him. The following morning, we woke up, and I think he came back drunk. There's no normal person who can say that to his own kids. But the following morning, we woke up. We tried to bond with him, me and my younger brother. We were younger. I was 8. Ndabandina 8 years. Chifhinga cha musikotsi anga vachivuya 8. I still remember it was in 2006. Nanobebuanga in 1988. I was born in 1988. So in 2006, I was 8 years old when my father returned. I can't remember which month though. The following morning, we tried to bond with him. We tried to play games with him. And he happened to say something. He said, please give me an ashtray. Mark that word. It's a very important word. He said, please pass me that ashtray. But, in our ears, it was like he said X-tray. We thought, ashtray was an X-tray. But when you say, please give an X-tray or ashtray, we would bring you like the ordinary ashtray where you ash, your cigarette when you're smoking. I'm not a smoker, but I know. When he said, please pass me the ashtray, I remember very well my younger brother jumped off to go and pick up the ashtray. And the first question from my father was, how do you know that this is an ashtray? And then my younger brother said, I learned from A. The first letter of the other guy's name started with A. But we pronounce it as A in my home village. My younger brother said, I learned from A, and then he kept quiet. My father said, you have to proceed. My younger brother realized that he made a mistake. He didn't want to proceed. And my father said, if you don't proceed now, I'm going to show you your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers. And then my younger brother mentioned the guy's name. And that was when my father said, Ishmael, my other name is Mpo, remember? But he used to call me Mpo. He said, Mpo, do you know what your younger brother is talking about? I was like, no, I'm not so sure. I'm not so certain. Maybe not, this and that. He said to me, I've heard about that. Is it true? Do you know where the guy lives? I was like, I don't know where the guy lives. And he clapped me so hard that I had to say to him, look, come, let me go show you where the guy lives. And remember, I heard that this guy's notorious. He's a gunman. He's like, everything is scary. Everybody's afraid of him in the village. But he was not residing there. Now that he's back, everybody's talking about us and him and everything. So after clapping me, I said, let me go show you where the guy lives. I remember it was me, it was my younger brother, it was my father. My mother went to go fetch woods to come and make food. You see, we had to walk, the three of us, me, my younger brother, and my father, going to that guy's home. Upon approaching the gate, I was trembling, I was shaking. Remember, we're going now to attack the guy that I really love and I really cherish. And I really wish he was my father. But now because we are going there, I was like shaking. I felt like pooping. I'm sorry, but I felt like pooping my pants. Going there. We got there, we opened the gate, and the rest will follow in the next episode. I thank you for tuning in.